Okay, hello and welcome to the Thespys info session. I will be recording this session. If you have to step out, we'll post it on the festival website as soon as it's available. I'll let a couple other people join us real quick before I begin my presentation. So if I have about a 30-minute presentation for you, and then there'll be time at the end if you have questions, or you can always email me. I'll share my contact information as soon as I begin the presentation. So let's go ahead and get started. Okay, so just before we get started on the Thespys info session, I wanted to just share a brief reminder that everything is new this year at Indiana University. We haven't had an in-person festival in 2 years, and before that it was in Lincoln, Nebraska. So we have a lot to learn and figure out. We don't have every single detail nailed down just yet, but as we figure things out, we'll post them on the website or have more info sessions as they are needed. And if you're new, I just wanted to briefly share what the Thespys program is. So the Thespys program is the International Thespian Excellence Awards. In the past, if you've been around for a while, we used to call it the National Individual Events Program, which people typically refer to as IEs. If you're kind of in the habit of calling it IEs, just try and move into the habit of calling it the International Thespian Excellence Awards, or Thespys, since that is the new name. The Thespy Awards are an educational program that provides students with constructive feedback on prepared theatrical material. This is the most important part of the program. It's really nice for students to get feedback from others in the theater industry. They're typically reviewed by 2 or 3 different adjudicators and get feedback on their performance or their technical presentation. They measure student success using rubrics aligned with the national standards. If you haven't looked at these yet, these are a great resource for your classroom too. If you are typically doing monologue work or technical theater presentations, scene work, these are a great way to score your students in a way that's really clear and easy to understand for them. We recognize the top scoring students with awards and scholarships. There's also national publicity involved. And new this year is that we've been listed as an approved program by the National Association of Secondary School Principals. The first thing to know about this is that in order to qualify, students need to earn a superior rating at a chapter event, which I'll get into in just a minute. So if you're brand new to the Thespys program and want to have the most up-to-date information at your fingertips, you're going to want to bookmark the thespys.org website. This is where all of the information for the program lives. It's the official homepage for the Thespys. We'll take a little field trip over there in just a second so I can kind of walk you through what resources you'll want to make sure to take note of. And you can stay current on all plans for ITF next year by checking out the ITF website, which is itf.schooltheater.org. And finally, if you have questions, again, we'll have time at the end if you have questions, or you can always email me at thespys@schooltheater.org. So really quickly, I'll just take you over to the Thespys website. So it's thespys.org, and you'll be greeted with this beautiful homepage here. And right along here, it will give you every step of the process involved. And we've tried to be really thorough and link resources that can help you kind of guide your way through the process. So one of the first things that you'll need to do when you participate is find your qualifier. So this is a list of all of the qualifying events. It might not include all of them if the chapter hasn't reported them. So I would always recommend checking with your chapter first, just to make sure that you are up to date on what's going on at the local level. And then the rules and rubrics by category are also really helpful. So depending on what category your students are participating in or are interested in learning more about, you'll open up that category, and here you'll find everything that you need to submit. You'll find a detailed rubric about how the student will be scored. You can also download these as a PDF if that's something that you want to be able to print and share. Another important part that I'll talk more about is the approved publishers list. This is all of the material that is acceptable for Thespy presentations and performances. And then over here, we'll have details about our scholarships, past winners. This is really useful if you're looking for examples about what a superior performance might look like. So there are all kinds of videos here for technical and performance entries. So there's not only the winners from last year, but there's also down here at the bottom, you can find the videos from 2020. So plenty of examples here if you are looking to educate your students about kind of what bar they're trying to reach. And then finally, there are FAQs, just the typical things that I get asked about the program. I'm always happy to add something here if you think that there's something that should be there. And when we're ready to begin accepting ITF entries, this is actually where students will come and enter their information. We'll turn this button into a submit button, and they'll be able to submit their entries right here. Okay, so back to the presentation. As I mentioned before, the first step to participate in the Thespys program is to locate your qualifying event. So that is typically held at the chapter level. So check with your state or chapter leaders to find out when those events might be. We have the list as we know it, but things can change back and forth, especially with COVID. So make sure to check with your chapter to have the most up-to-date information. If your chapter does not have events, you don't have an active chapter, your chapter event was canceled, or you meet other eligibility requirements, we also have a unified Thespy qualifier. This is a virtual submission, and we accept materials from February 1st to March 1st. And that's another way to earn a superior rating in order to move on to ITF in June. So as I mentioned, you must earn a superior rating at a qualifying event in order to move on to ITF. And as far as who is eligible, junior thespians and high school thespians may participate in the Thespys program. I get asked a lot if students in grades 6 through 8 can participate. Yes, they can, but we don't divide it into age groups. So they are going to be competing against high school, sophomores, seniors, juniors. So I've just kind of make sure that they understand they're in that same group. Students are required to have active status in the current academic year. Our academic year runs from August 1st to July 31st. So they just have to be in school during that time. They can't have graduated. And participants must be officially inducted into an ITS troop. So we have to have them in our records, in our database, in order for them to be considered an official thespian. So these are the categories that we offer in the Thespys program. If you have ideas about new categories or want us to consider adding a new category, I'll touch base about how to go about requesting those at the end of the presentation. But these are the ones that currently exist. And you can learn more about each of these again on that Thespys website. There's a category for each one. You can learn all about the different requirements and rubrics. Another question I hear a lot is about how many categories students can enter. At the international level, students can enter as many categories as they have earned a superior rating. So if they've participated in a qualifying event and they've earned a superior rating in a group acting, a costume design, a monologue, they can absolutely submit an entry for all of those at ITF. I would keep in mind that some chapters do limit the number of categories that students can participate in, just because the more categories that you allow students to participate in, the more staffing, the more time, the more space. So they just might not be able to offer that opportunity. But if your chapter is, and students can enter as many categories, we'll accept all of them too. They don't have to make a choice. I also wanted to mention our playwriting category. This was new last year, but in the past, we've had a program called Playworks. This is essentially the exact same thing. So we've just moved the Playworks program into the Thespys program. It's now known as the playwriting category. exactly the same. Students will write a short script and submit it for review. If they are selected if they're among the top scorers and earn a superior rating, they will be workshopped during festivals. So they'll work with a dramaturg and director. The exciting thing about this category is it's our only sponsored Thespy category. It's sponsored by Concord Theatricals, and they actually publish these plays every year. So that's very exciting. It's a really great opportunity for a student to become a published playwright just by entering this category of the Thespys. And because this is kind of new, not every chapter offers the playwriting category. So if your chapter doesn't, you can also enter through the Unified Thespy qualifier. Again, that's February 1st through March 1st. And we'll accept materials through that platform as well. When students are looking for material, they'll want to choose a piece from an approved publisher, and that's that listing that I showed you before. So approved publishers are companies that understand the Thespys program. They know how students will be using their pieces and when. And we contacted them this past summer and actually reached out to all of them and made sure they were clear on the expectations and made sure that we had permission for students to even use them. So these are all so that list on the Thespys page are all of those approved publishers. It represents, thousands of scripts. If you encounter a publisher who does not appear on this list, the publisher can contact EDTA to request to be on this list, but we're not accepting author-only permission, or we're not asking students to get permission. That was the case in the past, but it got really complicated and kind of difficult to track. So we're just asking if publishers want to be on this list, they can contact us. There's a form that they'll need to fill out to make sure that they understand how everything will be used, and then we'll add them. It's a pretty simple process. This is a question that has been coming up a lot lately. So we've had questions about, can a female student play a role that is written for a male character? The answer is absolutely yes. For the Thespys, they're not being cast in a show. It's an educational opportunity. So we're encouraging students to choose pieces that speak to them. The only thing to note about this is they still have to follow the copyright rules. So they can't change the pronouns in the script or words in the script without the consent of the publisher. So that's just a really important note. Anytime you want to change anything in a script, make sure you get publisher permission first. Another thing that we've been working on, thanks to the help of our past ITO, who are huge advocates of deaf and hard of hearing students participating in the Thespys. We are permitting students who are deaf or hard of hearing to use a conductor if they are participating in a musical performance. And if you have a student who is performing in American Sign Language and you need adjudicators who are fluent in American Sign Language, please notify us, and we've been working on collecting some adjudicators who have that specialty. Something new this year, this was based on a lot of feedback from troupe directors and students. We've made some changes to the tech rubrics. So if you haven't looked at those this year, make sure that you review them carefully. We put a team of educators together along with EDTA staff and looked through the rubrics and made sure that there were clearer requirements for each category and they were better aligned to industry standards. In my opinion, it is much simpler and easier to understand than it has been in the past about what is required for each category, how they will be adjudicated. So definitely check that out and encourage your students to as well. If you've been relying on old PDF versions of these rubrics. The performance rubrics have not changed, those are the same. This is another question I hear quite frequently is who submits a Thespy entries? So should a student submit them? Should a teacher submit them? We encourage students to take ownership and take some of the burden off of the troupe directors by submitting these on their own. It's a little easier to understand if you're the student filling it out versus if you're the teacher. The important thing to note is that you'll need to use an email address that you regularly check and can check into the summer, because communication can continue into festival and beyond. So make sure that it's an email address that you have access to in the summer. And if a troop director really wants to help and submit these entries for the students, you absolutely can, but make sure that you're paying really close attention to the fields in open water when you submit them. So when you log into open water, it'll automatically default and fill in your information for the fields. But just make sure that when you are completing that application for students, that you're entering the student's name, student's email address, so that it's not confusing for the adjudicators who are reviewing that application. Because we'll know that it's the troop director, but then there'll be a video for a student. So just try and make sure all of the names in the application match. For duet and group categories, this is really important. Only one member of the group or duet needs to submit the entry. There's a place for them to add the students who are participating in that same group. So not every student needs to submit that entry. That just creates a lot of duplicate entries that we have to remove later. So they just need to make sure to, collaborate and make it clear who is submitting that application. All of the entries for ITF this year will be submitted digitally first. That's the very first step that we'll ask students to do. So these are just some tips that we've put together based on some feedback from the adjudicators last year. The students want to make sure they have a neutral background in a quiet location, free from distractions. The adjudicators need a full body camera shot, because one of the categories that they're scoring is movement. So we'll need to be able to see the students' movement. They shouldn't edit the video at all. We saw a lot of editing in between slating and transitioning into characters. That's another important scoring element. So we need to be able to see those transitions. So just make sure no editing, as close to an in-person performance as possible. Students don't need to add words or special effects or anything like that. Just a straight performance on film. Make sure that the students watch their video in full to check for errors. Make sure it's clean, easy to hear, easy to see. And the great part about digital adjudication is that you can, record it over and over again. And we won't know how many times you tried. So I would encourage students to record it over and over again and go with their best take, get feedback from troop directors, get feedback from friends and family to see which one is the highest quality and is going to represent their best self. Make sure you have, if you have a technical entry, make sure that all of your documents are really clear and easy to read. If you have any questions about that, I would send them to someone else to open on their own device and see if it's easy for them to read or if they have any questions. We offer the option to upload a video link or to share a video link or to upload a video. We've had better luck with video links, so I'd recommend uploading your video to a file sharing platform like Dropbox, Google Drive, YouTube, Vimeo, and then just sharing the link for that video. The only thing to remember there is you'll need to check the settings. Make sure that anyone with the link can view. We're not responsible for going in and checking that your videos actually work. So make sure that those settings are right. Again, send it to someone else and make sure they can open it before you submit it on your entry. We had a slight dress code update, and this was again based on troop director feedback from previous years. In the past, we required all black attire, even down to the shoes. You couldn't have a speck of white or any color on you. So we just updated that a little bit. Students can dress neatly in simple, modest outfits in black or dark colors. You can wear neutral footwear. It can be any color. It can be white, plain white gym shoes. It can be brown flats. Just something that isn't too loud or colorful or has anything like flashing lights or any of those things. A good resource is to just simply Google business casual for students. This will give you examples like this photo here. just plain pants, plain shirt, look nice. Avoid any distracting elements or attempts to costume a character. You just want to be kind of a neutral slate. And here's a list of common disqualifications that we see. So just make sure, these are some things to check when your students are working on their entries. Make sure that they are, again, using that using material from the accepted publishers list. Make sure that you pay attention to time limits carefully. That's a really unfortunate way to get disqualified if you just haven't been paying attention to the time. Check the final length of your video. Make sure you fall within that time limit category, the category time limit. Make sure that you're an inducted thespian, so your troop director has submitted your information to us and you're in our database. Make sure that you're including all of the requirements for your category. So if you are participating in the solo acting category and you only submit one monologue instead of two, that's an automatic disqualification. So just make sure that you're reading all the rules really carefully. Also, failure to register and paying fees by the deadline is, again, a disqualification. If you're disqualified, we don't refund your participation fees. So another reason to be really careful about following those rules. You'll know that you've qualified by email usually. So you'll hear from your chapter leaders if you participated in a qualifying event. And the feedback and scores may be provided in writing or digitally. It depends on if the event was held in person or virtual. Chapters are kind of doing a mix of that this year. So I just check with your chapter first to find out how they plan to communicate that information. If they've earned the superior rating, they've automatically qualified to move on. The chapter leaders submit all of their superior students to me or to ADTA, and then we will email them in April with an official invitation to festival and all of the information about registering and things that they have to do. So again, just really important to have that email address up to date and checked regularly so you know everything that's going on. Students who participate in ITF earn one honor item per category that they enter, so they earn their highest honor item. So if they have earned a fared excellent rating, they'll get a participation pin. If they've earned a superior rating, they won't get the participation pin, they'll just get the medallion. And if they earn the highest score in their category, they'll earn a Thespys Award winner medallion, and their school will also be sent a trophy. And these are all, we're planning to distribute these in person at ITF. So it'll be a nice presentation during festival, during the awards showcase on June 24th. Scholarships are also a part of the Thespys program. So we have a very generous sponsor, the Grace Kelly Foundation, and they have provided a number of scholarships to help students who score the highest in their category. So they award 10 scholarships annually. There are 5 $6,000 scholarships, which are presented to graduating seniors for their college education. And there are 5 $1,000 training scholarships to underclassmen. And the training scholarships are to be used for programs that will help them learn more about the part of theater that they're most interested in. So maybe they want to take an acting class outside of their school, or maybe they want to learn more about some aspect of technical theater. So this is money that can help them acquire that additional training. The other exciting thing about this Grace Kelly partnership is that the Princess Grace Foundation actually matches these students with a mentor. And these are typically people who work on Broadway and have a lot of experience in the field, a lot of connections, and they'll really help those students to kind of move forward in their theater path. There's also the Amy Bennett Musical Theater Scholarship, and this is a $2,500 scholarship, and it's awarded to the top solo musical performer. So those are things to keep in mind and let your students know about. As far as festival, so there are still some things to figure out, but what I can share with you is that we're going to continue digital adjudication through open water. So when students earn their superior rating, they'll submit an entry digitally in our open water platform. Everyone will be scored virtually at first, and then the top scorers are going to be invited to perform live. And we're kind of going to do a mix of hybrid and in-person participation. So if you're not allowed to travel yet and you're only allowed to participate virtually, we're going to figure out that piece of it too. We're planning to have a spectacular Thespys showcase. We're going to do like a red carpet entrance. We're going to have a live callback round to select the performers for that piece. And then one thing that we did last year that was really popular and we'd like to continue again is we asked the tech students to kind of prepare like a 1-minute sizzle video. So they use their digital entry and just kind of piece that together to make just a 1-minute video of their presentation. It was really cool. You can see some examples of those on that Thespys site where I showed you the past winners were. It was really cool to be able to see the work that the technical theater students are doing too. These are the important dates. So these are the dates that you need to be aware of. So right now, chapter qualifying events are taking place. So again, check with your chapter if you don't know when your qualifying event is to make sure you know what's going on there. February 1st to March 1st is that Unified Thespy qualifier, and that is again if you don't have a chapter qualifying event or it's canceled or a whole number of reasons. But if you have any questions about who can participate in that, just email me and I can send you more information. In April, that's when we will send all of the qualifying students their invitation to ITF. So be sure to check your email. It's usually about mid-April that goes out. May 11th will be the deadline for qualifying students to register for ITF. So they will have the option of registering virtually or for in-person, but May 11th will be the deadline. So mark that in your calendar. June 1st is going to be the deadline that they'll need to submit their Thespy materials. So May 11th, they'll still have some time, about a month, to get all of their materials together. Students can re-record their presentation if they'd like to use their feedback that they received in the qualifying round to re-record their video. That's completely acceptable and encouraged. And then finally, the dates of festival are June 20th to 24th with the Thespian Awards showcase on June 24th. For Thespy fees, we're not announcing the exact price just yet. That is coming soon, but we're still figuring out some aspects of our budget. I can tell you that it's going to be a participation fee model. So every student participating in Thespys will pay a participation fee one time. So even if they're entering multiple categories, maybe they qualified in a group acting and a costume design, they'll still just pay the one participation fee to enter as many categories as they like, but every student will need to pay that fee in order to be part of the Thespys program. We do always need adjudicators. We use about 100 every year for just Thespys at the ITF level. Additionally, chapters need adjudicators. So if you're interested in learning more about adjudication or serving as an adjudicator, there's a training course that you need to take, and then you'll also just need to contact us to let us know that you're interested so that we can put you on our list and update you as opportunities become available. At your chapter level, you can contact me and I can put you in touch with your chapter, or you can just reach out to your chapter leaders directly if you're interested in serving as an adjudicator. At the international level, we have opportunities to adjudicate in March after the unified qualifier ends. That's when we'll be adjudicating those entries. And then we'll also be adjudicating again in June after we have all of those materials submitted. If you have any feedback and suggestions to help improve the future of the program, if you have new categories to suggest, we have created a Thespys feedback form. So you can submit anything. This is not something that we typically reply to. It's something that we're collecting ideas and feedback, and then we'll review it periodically as the year goes on. and look at making changes for the future. If you need an immediate response to something, I'd recommend just emailing me, and then I can go from there. If you have questions about a score on a Thespy entry, the best plan there is if it's at a qualifying event, make sure to talk to your chapter leaders. They make all the decisions about your chapter qualifying events and scoring. And then if you have questions about scores submitted at ITF, then that would be a question for me. And then finally, this is my contact information. You can contact me directly at my email, gbutch@schooltheater.org, or you can also email us at thespys@schooltheater.org. This goes to a few people on our team, just in case I would be out of the office for some reason. Don't forget to check out that thespys.org website. And if you have any questions, I can take some now, or feel free to email me later on. I think we've got a question in the chat. Oh, well, I answered that earlier. So we don't have the fees available. We don't have the exact pricing available just yet, but we will shortly, probably before the end of the year. Does anyone else have any questions about the Thespys program?
I have a question. I know you can't tell us the fees, but can you go over what the fees have been in the past?
Sure. The fees in the past are typically around, they've kind of ranged from, I guess, $15 to $25. I think when they were in person, it might have been a little more, but I wasn't on that team at the time. I think maybe it could have been upwards of 50. I don't think they're going to be that high this year. I think they're shooting for more in like the $25-ish range, but it's just not confirmed yet.
Okay, but as far as like staying the full week at the on campus, what is that going to involve price-wise?
Oh, I don't have stats on that yet, but they're looking at comparable pricing from past years. They weren't trying to make that too much different from what it has been in the past.
Okay, and I'm sorry, what has that been in the past? That was my original question.
Oh, it was under $1,000. I think maybe around 700. I think.
Wow. Okay, that sounds great. I thought it'd be more.
I'm not sure. Again, we haven't done this in person in 2 years, and we have an entirely new venue, so it could be very different. But just that's kind of what I had like from several years ago. And something to also know too is we have grants available for festival attendance. So if that is something your students need financial aid, check out the awards, grants, and scholarship section of our website. Those applications, we're accepting applications now. So encourage your students to apply for those. We also have like a send a troop grant that can send an entire troop to festival as well. So check those out if you need financial aid.
Perfect, thanks.
Jeannie, I have a question. Are all 100% of submissions going to be online submissions, or are there going to be, I guess, performances as well as part of the festival?
So we're going to ask every student who qualifies and wants to participate at ITF to submit a digital entry first. So that's the very first step. Everyone's going to be required to do that, whether they're technical or performance. They'll submit a digital entry. And from there, we'll figure out who's going to actually have some kind of live element in at festival in person. So that might be the very top scores. We might have coaching opportunities. We haven't exactly figured out how it's going to go just yet because we're kind of waiting to see how all of the chapter events are working and what the situation with COVID is. But we'll know more, and as soon as we have the exact details, we'll post that on the Thespys website and the festival website.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions? Okay, well, that's all I have for you today. Again, feel free to email me if you think of anything later, and we'll record this session and post it on the website for reference later, or if you'd like to share it with anyone looking for more information about this program. If there's anything you'd like to see a presentation on in the future, just let us know, and we'll be happy to make an info session on that. I know there's already one on main stage and just ITF in general that we've done in the past couple weeks if you want more information about those. All right, well, thank you very much for coming today, and
Thanks,
hope to
Jamie.
see you at the festival. Thanks.
Bye.